Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here today. We appreciate your advice to this committee and your service to our great United States. And Secretary Mattis, open invitation to Ruck March with Team Ernst at any time. Anytime. Vice Chief of Army and I solved most of the world's problems this morning. We just need you to fill in the gaps. So you're welcome at any point. Gentlemen, a counter-ISIS strategy in Southeast Asia is something that I've continued to push for, which was why I was excited to hear that this weekend U.S. Special Operations Forces were assisting the government of the Philippines in taking back the ISIS-held town of Marawi. Until 2014, we used to have a sizable counterterrorism mission in the Philippines, and we have known about this threat for a very long time, and unfortunately, we haven't returned to that area in order to counter some of ISIS's bad deeds. So, General Dunford, as we target a terrorist enemy that wishes to strike our homeland, how does our counterterrorism commitment in the region also help ward off other adversaries like China and Russia?
Senator, you want me to hit those two separately? First of all, with Southeast Asia, in addition to the Republic, in addition to our presence in the Philippines with the counterterrorism, the Congress funded what's called the Maritime Domain Awareness Initiative, and that helps countries in the region, specifically Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, to have a common understanding of the maritime domain, particularly the flow of foreign fighters, criminals, and those kinds of things. The other thing that we have done is we have incorporated Southeast Asian nations into what we call Operation Gallant Phoenix. That's our intelligence and information sharing architecture, which allows us to take a trans-regional approach to violent extremism. Separately, our forward presence in the Pacific, to include the fielding of our most modern capabilities, the P-8, the F-22, the F-35, in our routine Pacific presence operations, are designed to deter conventional conflict, and specifically conventional conflict with China and North Korea in the region.
Do you see that as being effective also in the areas of Malaysia and Indonesia?
In terms of deterring conventional conflict, I do, and I view the most dangerous threats in Malaysia and Indonesia to be the threat of violent extremism.
Okay, so ISIS-oriented.
Senator, if I could just add one point here. We have talked about the lack of strategy earlier. In 2014, we canceled the named operation that we had down there out perhaps of a premature view that we were gaining success. Without that, we lost some of the funding lines that we would have otherwise been able to offer. So what the chairman has brought up is completely correct, but it again shows the lack of strategy that we inherited there. I just got back from Shangri-La, where the chairman and other members of the Congress were, and this came up, and we are working closely with them, the Philippines right now, for example, with both manned and unmanned aircraft as they try to retake Marawi there in Mindanao. So this is an ongoing issue. What you're bringing up, I think, is going to loom larger if we were having this hearing a couple months from now. So we've got to take steps that get this back under control and support Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines along the lines that your questioning leads us to.
Yes, and thank you for bringing up the Shangri-La dialogue, Mr. Secretary. While you were there, the other countries that participate in that dialogue, what type of support are they looking at coming from the United States? What can we offer them?
Yes, ma'am. Much of it is along the lines of what the chairman just mentioned with Operation Gallant Phoenix. It's getting the intelligence and sharing the information where everything from Interpol to all the secret services of various nations work together, so that transnational threats are tracked when they go over the nation's borders, when they flee from one to another. Gallant Phoenix is critical. Also, other intelligence help. And I would add there that that's where our strategy of working by, with, and through allies helps take the load off us. For example, Singapore has offered ISR in surveillance aircraft to Philippines. That's the way we need to get everybody working together out there against this threat. and not carrying the full load ourselves.
Thank you. Just very briefly, because I am nearly out of time, our special operators have a dwell time of about 1-to-1 ratio. This was mentioned by General Votel in one of our conversations recently. What can we do? And I'll tell you, it's because they want that. I mean, they won't say no when they are given a mission, and I think that's incredibly important that they stand up to their obligations. But what can we do to increase their dwell time beyond expanding their forces? Is there a way we can push their talents out to the conventional forces?
Some of these missions, due to our conventional forces capability today compared to 2001, we have now Army infantry, Army brigades, Marine battalions that can pick up some of these missions, take the load off, take the work off of the special operators and that sort of thing. Where you want relationships, we still want to use the special operations forces. Chairman, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I'd say, Senator, is the Secretary actually directed me several weeks ago to do an analysis of all of our special operations requirements today and look for opportunities to substitute with conventional forces for exactly the reason you're talking about. We are concerned about the deployment to dwell ratio, which is not only a factor from a human perspective in families, it also precludes them from training for the full range of missions that we may require them for. And we don't want them, as you know, to be singularly focused on the current fight. We want them to be prepared, just like the rest of the force, to be prepared to support us across the spectrum.
Absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.